I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:30 p.m. We'll move to section 2, roll call.
With 22 members present, a simple majority is 12 and 2/3 majority is 15.
That moves us directly into section 3, introductions and reports. 3.1, messages from the student body president. There are none, so we move to 3.2, report from the executive branch, Vice President Vaughn.
Good evening, everyone. I hope your week has been going well so far. For updates for us, last week, President Howard met with President Muma and Dr. Hall for the monthly meeting. And then on Saturday, our cabinet had a retreat at Chicken and Pickle. We discussed our goals for this semester, in addition to planning our remaining events for the year. We still have an open position for the Associate Justice position, so anyone that is interested can apply through Shocker Sync. Additionally, we have open positions on Finance Commission still, so if you know anyone that would be interested in the engineering, honors, applied studies, out-of-state, underserved, graduate, or military veterans commissioner positions, the applications are also on Shocker Sync, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our treasurer. In addition to that, Freshman Leadership Council is also open to adding any last-minute members for the next few weeks. If you know any freshmen that are interested, also please let us know. For our Chief of Staff, Westbrook, he is finalizing the meeting minutes for Finance Commission and updating the record. For our Director of Legislative and Policy Affairs, Arons, she is currently working on finalizing the planning for Higher Education Day. We had a meeting today with all those attending Higher Ed Day to go over expectations for the trip, in addition to assigning legislative assignments for that day. For our Director of International Student Affairs, 1J, he met with Shocker Career Accelerator to finalize plans for the guest speaker event. 3 guest speakers have been secured. We're working on confirming 2 more, and then he's currently coordinating logistics, including catering and venue setup for that event. And then we're also scheduling follow-up calls with speakers just to finalize the details. For our Director of Leadership and Engagement, Fritz, Freshman Leadership Council is planning their Valentine's Day party, and they have started with the shadowing program. They are also preparing to attend Wu's big event, but I will put in the set resources folder in the teams the flyer for the Freshman Leadership Council Valentine's Day event. For our Director of Media Relations, Sanoff, she is working with the Elections Commission to advertise the elections through our social media platforms, and she also decided to start weekly Senate update posts and is working on upcoming event graphics. For our Director of Student Organizations, Chohan, the applications for the new Student Organizations Council are open. We are interviewing a couple more applicants as they come and go. We interviewed one today, but we're hoping to receive many more applications. Our goal is to get 2021 representatives on that council. So if you know any student organizations that are interested in applying, then that application is also on Shocker Sync, and you can find more information on our website. For our Director of Outreach, Win, we have an end-of-month mixer with our associate agencies on February 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a great opportunity for you all to get to know the faces behind student organizations here on campus, and you can ask them questions that you have and vice versa. She encourages you all to please attend, and of course, just a reminder that the outreach feedback form is still available and open, and Senate leadership should have access to it also. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to her, and she is also sitting in the back if you want to talk to her later. We will also have tabling for our Random Acts of Kindness Day on February 17th. If you want to sign up to table for that, please let us know, and we'll be happy to have senators table on that day and just spread some kindness during our tabling. For our undergraduate advocate, Wassinger, pretty similar to what we had last week. We still have 10 cases open right now. 8 of those cases are academic appeals, still have that traffic appeal, and then 1 academic integrity case. We will be having the first Accessibility and Disability Pride Task Force meeting this Thursday, and she encourages any of all senators to shoot her an email with any related concerns or issues experienced by their constituency. For our graduate advocate Tran, she currently has 2 cases, she is finalizing the graduate advocacy survey. She will be tabling at the Causes and Issues Fair later this month. I would be happy to answer any questions right now, and then after that, I'll yield my time to our student body treasurer. But I'll answer any questions that you have for the rest of the reports.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. Treasurer Wong, you have the floor.
Hello everyone. I hope you guys are keeping warm during the very cold night tonight. So just a little bit of an update about what Finance Commission has been up to. Just today at 4 p.m. we had a student fees training held by Advisor Gabriel Fonseca. We kind of learned the history of student fees, how the meeting is ran, departments up for review, etc. And next week we will have 8 presenters, both individual and organizational funding. In Finance Commission today, we also talked about appropriation organizations. So what we talked about is a third violation of these organizations. These organizations violated the appropriations policies and procedures 3 times. The first time they were given a written warning and a second chance to correct their mistake. The second time I brought the recommendation for a second violation to Finance Commission, which passed with a majority vote, and then again asked them to correct their violation, and after a due date, a deadline, they still have not corrected this violation, so they were given a third violation. I brought this up again in Finance Commission. The following organizations have been found in 3 violations by Finance Commission: Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, IEEE Eta Kappa Nu, Project Management Institute, and the Golden Heat. And I am required to notify Senate when these organizations are on their 3rd violation. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Senator Mallard?
What happens after the violations are done? Is it just they can't apply for appropriations, or is there more than just that?
Could you clarify a little bit more about what you're asking?
So after the 3rd, so they're fully found in violation and now they're on probation. That's what you said, right? Or are they not allowed to apply for appropriations in the future, or are there other processes that they're also not allowed to do?
So since they're on their 3rd violation, they just won't be allowed to request funding from their appropriation funds that they received this year, as well as they have to submit a plan of action and correct the violation by a certain deadline. If they do not meet this deadline, then there could be even further consequences of not being eligible to apply for appropriations the following year. But those discussions have not come up yet, just because we have not found them we have not found any organizations pass a 3rd violation.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, we can give her a light snap. Come on now. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, that moves us directly to, once I get it up here, great, to 3.3, report from the Speaker of the Senate. Howdy y'all, I hope you're doing good. So first, Director Arns led a meeting today to prepare for Higher Education Day on February 12th. You will all be getting a nice report next week about Higher Ed Day and the happenings of it, and that'll be exciting. Also this Monday, Legislative Council met and voted on those pieces of legislation from last week that we discussed that were moving from government oversight to legislative affairs due to the attendance issues within government oversight. So I just wanted to discuss with you a little bit about those. So SB-67-150, Management of the Student Fees Reserved Act, and SB-67-151 were voted to be tabled until next Monday, and so they'll be back on the floor in Legislative Council to be reviewed next week. due to them being tabled. And if you have questions about why or the reason, I'm more than happy to let you know. But I'll move straight on to that. We will also see the Membership Review Board Amendment Act tonight as it passed through Legislative Council this Monday with a few amendments. Those amendments are in green, and we'll discuss that a little bit more when we get into that. The Finance Commission met today, as Vice President Fawn and Treasurer Wong discussed. We conducted our SGA student fees training for the 2026 cycle. During this process, Dr. Gabriel Fonseca went over the process for student fees and discussed the services on campus that are up for review. There are still spots open on the Finance Commission, and I urge you all to apply. The open positions pending the approval of those up for appointment today on the consent agenda are engineering, honors, applied studies, out-of-state, underserved, graduate, and military and veterans. So the application is on Shocker Sync and open for anyone to apply if you fit those criteria. So please do. It's a great opportunity to really get a head start on that process and to really be a part of it. It's fantastic if you want to be involved and also get some experience in that area. Also, you get to talk to like so many of our services on campus, and it's fantastic. But I also attended student services today, and AR-67-013 was tabled indefinitely at the suggestion of the author due to the main action of the bill having occurred during winter break within the HESCA. This was the cameras bill. So, lastly, I have food for fines. It's this week from the 6th to the 7th, so make sure to donate if you have a ticket that is applicable to this process. So, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. We'll move to 3.4, report from Government Oversight Chairperson Bobbitt.
Okay, hello everyone. A bit of a short report tonight, but this week the Government Oversight Committee met informally to discuss our remaining objectives for the session, and then individually I have submitted a request for a judicial interpretation on some language included within the Membership Review Board Act that we are discussing tonight. And then I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have on that.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to 3.5, report from Academic Affairs Chairperson Grajeda.
Hello. Academic Affairs met today with Dr. Brett Bruner from Advising to discuss some advising concerns. So he took with him a list of questions and concerns that we had, mostly regarding their processes and statistics. So hopefully we'll have a response for those soon. And I met with him on Monday to coordinate adding a student representative to the University Advising Council. The representative is going to be the Academic Affairs Chairperson, so for now me. And I'll be attending the first meeting for that, 2 weeks for today. And lastly, I am just preparing for Higher Ed Day next week, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to 3.6, report from Diversity, Empowerment, and Inclusion Chairperson Haynes.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I hope y'all had a great week so far. Happy Black History Month. This is a reminder to cash out your favorite Black person and or your favorite chairperson anytime this month. Today is preferable because bills are due. So we met in committee earlier today and had some good discussion about what we plan on continuing to do for the session, as well as during committee work time, just working on our legislation. Additionally, we have some agency updates for y'all. So, Asian Student Conference, Black Student Union, and HALO collaborated with our National Paneling Council and Cultural Greek Council on their roll bounce skate night event that they had on Monday at the Carousel Skate Arena. If you missed it, so unfortunate for you because you missed your one chance to see me skate. You missed your one chance. You will never see it again. So hopefully that becomes an annual thing. Y'all will not see me skate annually. But it was a great event, truly packed. But yeah, that's that. Next, ASC, they sold milk tea and chai last week. Yesterday, they had their ASC Discord game night. And then this Friday, I repeat, this Friday, ASC is doing community service, helping with Meals on Wheels to go help pack lunches for those in need that can't get around to, get their own stuff. HALO, they have their HALO resume workshop tonight, and then they have snacks. So unfortunately, we can't be there because we're here. Hopefully, they save some snacks for me. And yeah, they're preparing for Si Se Puede Day, which is their huge recruitment event during the spring. So we wish them all the best with that. Regarding our Black Student Union, we are prepping for Big 12, which is in 2 weeks, everyone. 2 weeks. Additionally, the Black History Month calendar has been completely sent out. Upcoming events would be this Friday, February 7th. They have their line dance and spades night with the African American Faculty and Staff Association. Yeah, just a nice little cultural event. Get to meet people, get to learn how to line dance and how to play spades. So if you don't know how to do either, that's the time to come outside because we will not be teaching it again. And then finally, ISU had their study group on January. They had their study group on January 31st, and they also had their first general meeting last week. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move to report from Student Services 3.7, Chair Adriana Owens.
Hello, everyone. As Matthew mentioned earlier, the Accessibility Task Force is meeting for the first time on the 6th at 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. in RC 219. Come if you want to. You're more than welcome. In committee, we voted unanimously to indefinitely table the cameras in the Heskett Center legislation at the recommendation of the author. We also voted unanimously to table the ADHD testing scholarship creation legislation until February 12th, as we felt that there needed to be some more work done on the research side to get a better idea of the cost for testing. We wanted to look into some questions that were raised about sourcing the testing to our psychology master's students or a partnership with the community so we can get a better estimate of the cost of the test. We felt that without a better understanding of the cost, we cannot make an educated decision of whether the $500 maximum allotment was enough. Overall, we hope to facilitate a joint committee meeting next week with the DEI committee to discuss our findings and the amendments we have already made this week in committee at the recommendation of our advisor, Dr. Fonseca. I'm open to questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move to 3.8, report from the central office, Dr. Gabriel Fonseca.
Only thing I have is to continue to push the election information out to your constituents. All that information is on social media, website, or on Shaka Blast starting this week and other spaces as well. So please continue to push that information out for your peers to learn about it. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Gabriel Fonseca? Okay, seeing none. Beautiful. We'll move to public forum and presentation. Section 4, public forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the Senate. This is a time for the association to listen to what the community has to say, and to that we offer undivided respect and attention. I would like to remind everyone that although we allow the speakers the privilege to use this platform, the opinions of the speakers do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the association or the university. First, we have Rihanna Rudy, but I don't believe she's here, but I want to throw it to her just in case. Just on the record there. Okay, not here. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public forum? Okay, seeing none, we move to Section 5, approval of the consent agenda. There's a little bit kind of law on the consent agenda, so I'll just go over it before we approve. So first, the December 4th minutes, I was just informed by the lovely Clerk Carter that we'll have to remove those just because they weren't the updated file. And that's okay. We'll move them to next week and those won't be confirmed. So when we go to our normal vote, just know that that's being struck out of that. Okay? And then our regular January 29th minute meetings. And then we have just an appointment resolution for the Finance Commission. If you look at it, it's just a couple members added to that. And then we have 5 funding bills as well. So there's 4 individual funding and 1 organizational funding bills. So if you have any questions about those, please let me know, or I can throw it to Treasurer Wong as well, if that's appropriate. But are there any questions about the consent agenda before we move forward? Beautiful. Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda as such? Beautiful. Seeing none, thank you. We'll move to Section 6, consideration of pending business 6.1.
Act on request to approve AR-67-011 by WSU SGA inquiry form.
Is the author here and would like to speak? You have the floor.
Yeah, this one's just pretty self-explanatory. Just putting the MyWCU or the inquiry form on the MyWCU page, so it's more accessible to students and it's more visible, and increasing our want to outreach to people. So if there are any questions, I will stand for questions.
Beautiful. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We move directly, since this is its second read, we move directly into the debate period on this item. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor or against this resolution? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. We'll move directly into voting. Oh, Evelyn, did you have something? Sorry, I can't quite see you. Senator Lewis.
I guess I'd like to speak in favor. Yeah, this is useful. We all know how hard it is to find students with complaints, so routing their complaints to us will be helpful.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the debate period? Okay, seeing none, now we can move into the voting procedure. I'll let Clerk Carter explain.
All right, just to update everyone, attendance is actually 23, so that makes simple majority 13 and 2/3 16. Yeah. All right, voting is now open. You will have to turn your clickers on. Y'all know the drill. Missing one. Okay, with 22 yes, 0 no's, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
We can do a better clap. Okay. Yeah. We're passing a resolution here. Okay, thank you. And we'll do better the next one too. Thank you very much. That brings us, and just a reminder to the body, at the end there, when it says to send that resolution to certain faculty administration, it has the provost on it. We have a different provost now, so that will be updated. That's just a simple administrative thing. So just so you know, on all the resolutions, we'll fix that. But we move to 6.2.
Act on request to approve AR-67-012, No Smoking or Vaping Signage Act.
You have the floor.
Sorry, give me a second. My computer just went to sleep. So there's some red text on there because over break I added a little bit extra. Was to install no smoking and the signage on the athletic courts. And the reason why I say satellite sites is because the Metroplex has 2 soccer fields, and they are used by the public regularly. And no smoking signs in the parking garages and partnership buildings. And we also put the chief of police, as we're talking about who we're sending it to, in case there was some concern on this as well. I know some talk is like, how would they get the money to be able to provide all this? So we actually already have a lot of these signs made. If you go to Jabara, it's like one of the only buildings on campus that actually has no smoking signs, as well as WC West has no smoking signs installed. And so it's more so a thing of, we already have the resources for this, but we're just trying to make it consistent throughout the entirety of campus and satellite sites. So this is not something new. It's something that we already have, and it's just enhancing on to make sure that it is all around. And I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. This moves us directly into the debate period on this item. Is there anyone who'd like to speak during this time? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We'll close the debate period and move directly into voting.
Voting is now open. With 21 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstaining, the motion passes.
That was much better. Okay. Now we move to 6.3.
Act on request to approve SB-67-149 Membership Review Board Amendment Act.
Is the author, and you have the floor.
Okay, so we made a few amendments in the Legislative Council since the last time you saw this bill. So the changes were pretty much we add all the chairpersons back into the membership within the board. We also re-added the clause where if a chairperson had to abstain, then pro temp would just take their place. I just merely forgot to copy and paste that section back down into it, so we added it back into towards the end of one of the larger sections. We also changed the language where instead of having all the representatives on the membership review board be present in order to vote on business, we changed it to 2/3 of all the representatives that are appointed to the board. In addition, we changed the language where in the case that a senator may be removed for failing to be sworn in, instead of having it be 2 Senate meetings after the first Senate meeting, we just merely changed it to a senator can be removed for not swearing in after the first Senate meeting of the session without being excused by the association advisor. So that still leaves some flexibility for students that have classes during the first Senate meeting to be excused, while for those that didn't talk to the association advisor or don't have a valid excuse, they won't be excused and will be removed from not attending the very first Senate meeting. I do recommend that as we go into the debate period, we make some amendments to this bill after some lengthy discussion in the Legislative Council, and I would love to hear your thoughts more on certain topics, but I'm open to any questions you may have on the bill as is.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Not a one? Okay, that's okay. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move directly into the debating period on this item. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Chairperson Bobbitt?
I have a amendment to propose.
Okay. We'll let Gabe have a second, and then we can put that up there, and then you can propose your amendment. But this is also a time where people can speak as well on the bill to fill up that time. Not a one, not a single person. That's okay. We'll just take a deep breath in and just wait. Okay, beautiful. What is your amendment?
Okay, I would like to go to Act 4, new Chapter 4, subpoint, or Clause 1, and then I would like to eliminate Subclause C. Yes.
Okay, is there a second for this amendment? Okay, seeing one from Senator Stinnett. Would you like to speak on this amendment?
So, at least in my opinion, this section of the bylaws doesn't actually achieve anything. It says that one of the sanctions the MRB can impose on a senator is a probationary period to be defined as to have probation means that should another complaint be submitted against the respondent within the probationary term, the membership review board shall recommend further action beyond the probationary status towards the resolution of the complaint. Essentially, this just says that to be on probation is to be subject to the authority of MRB, which all senators are already subject to. So I just feel like this section is redundant.
Okay, is there any other debate on this item? Senator Miller.
I understand like redundancy is kind of a problem, but I also kind of started like considering possible like the purpose of redundancy being installed do we, I think it might be considered like keeping the redundancy just in case there's any sort of alterations in other laws, so that in the future it kind of puts like a safeguard, like we call it like a Swiss cheese method, basically putting up multiple barriers in multiple places, basically making it so that if we eliminate one provision, we still have many other provisions in place that kind of just reiterate the same thing.
Senator Mallard.
Yeah, I am for the removal of this. One of my problems as well is, it just says to recommend further action. It doesn't even state really what it is, and it is just, it's redundant. And like Senator or Chairperson Bobbitt said, this is the whole point of of this, is to review the people and so on and so forth. But I do think that this should be removed.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on? Senator Lewis.
I'm speaking in favor of the amendment because these are 3 options that the membership review board can take in response to a student. And having one useless option, even using it to mark a student for further action, can be accomplished by the subclause B, so which can be harmless or actually be used to do more. So C is not helpful.
Thank you. I am going to throw a question for all of us, just to have Gabe answer. So probationary status, I guess it's 2 questions in one. Has this ever occurred in a session? And second, what exactly happens during that probationary status? Because from my understanding and conversations with that, it does not define that status or what occurs during that time, or if voting rights or procedure is, removed from that individual or anything like that. So could you clarify?
I have never seen us put someone on a probation status before, so I don't think it's ever been used. I think most of the board, when they've processed previous cases, have always led to the removal of someone, so I don't think we've ever used this clause before. Being on probation doesn't, because the line right below it, you can't put a sanction on someone that would take away their ability to have speaking rights or to vote in here or in Senate, because constitutionally you couldn't do that. I would assume that when this was written, it was written to kind of put someone on notice, but I don't think I've ever seen this body use it before, or any of your predecessors use it before.
Thank you. Senator Hatch.
Yeah, I would be in favor of removing this this particular piece, mainly because it is redundant, and we've run into issues before where if you keep too many redundant things and then something changes within the bylaws, now you have to go and change all the things that are related to that, and just having that being covered once is more than enough. Secondly, since it doesn't do anything, if we really want to keep probation as an option, it should like define something that it does to the person. Like if they get put under, if another legitimate complaint is lodged against them, they don't even go to review board, they're just removed. Something to the effect where probation actually has teeth and isn't just, well, they're on notice that we can kick them out, but we can kick them out anyway. So I don't know.
Senator Miller.
Do we have any tools useful for like something like probation? If we were to give probation teeth, my worry is possible abuse. It's a possibility. We have to think about all possibilities. Is there any other thing tool we have, like censorship or like any form of basically steps to be put in place? Or does this like the only step do we have, or what?
So speaking directly about this amendment specifically, what it does and what, from my understanding, it does is obviously if an individual has a case, then membership review board can put them on the probationary status, and during whatever period of time, if they say a week up to 2 months, can decide that while they're in that status, if another case, because this can be an event where it's a minor issue or an issue not subjecting them to not wanting to remove that individual from office, can put them on that probationary status and then say if there is another case that is lodged against this individual, then they can be brought back to membership review board and they can take that probationary status, and even if it is another minor issue, and use that as a tool to remove them from their position because they, I guess, violated that in a sense. I guess the problem with that, as Senator Hatch also said, and Chairperson Bobbitt as well, is there is no specific definition of that status or what exactly it entails. Moreover, the Membership Review Board can recommend further action, but as a body itself, it is always subjected to the whims of the Senate, because everything it does within the status and how the bylaws read beyond like attendance and like GPA issues, pending this passage, must then be approved by the Senate. So it can take that recommendation and say, here was 2 small issues, but they did the second issue during that probationary status, so we recommend removal, and then the Senate can use that to justify whatever they decide. Go ahead.
Then a further question, can't we just amend it and just add a definition, or do we need to set up another piece of resolution if we, to like re-implement this tool that can be used by the Senate? Because I think this is a useful tool. I just think since it's not being defined what that probationary period looks like, all these kind of, you need the definition, the defining of this. Why don't we just define it?
I mean, that's a good point. You absolutely can define it, but just for the interest of this particular amendment, we are discussing potentially removing or keeping this piece. So if you would like to keep that piece but then define it, then you absolutely have every right to do so, and I encourage you to do so as well. But to keep it germane to the topic as well, just make sure you're discussing the amendment itself, removing it or keeping it. But thank you very much. We'll go to Senator Mallard and then we'll go to Vice President Fawn.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I feel like Gabe kind of answered that a little bit to a degree, it says right below it, under no circumstances shall any form of sanctions restrict the, voting rights and procedural and all these things. And if we're trying to say that we want to define it, well, we're getting rid of it because we can't really define it to a degree and how I view it. And so that's why I think that this should be removed. And as Hatch said as well, it could become a problem in the future if we redefine a lot of things. But I think that this should be gotten rid of.
Vice President Fawn.
Yeah, I'm also speaking in favor of having this section removed. Personally, I don't really see a need to define what the probationary status will look like. We still, if we do bring people to membership review board, it'll probably be in case of all the other violations listed. I feel like having a probationary status isn't necessary in this section, but I'm open to more thoughts about it.
Advisor Fonseca.
I think just maybe to what Senator Miller was trying to get to, Robert's Rules still lets you have censure motions, so you're able to submit those as individual senators regardless of the membership review process. So those are still authorities that are vested in you in Robert's Rules process. So just an FYI.
Okay, any other discussion on this amendment particularly? I did have one thing I would love to ask Gabe about. So smaller infractions, such as like maybe behavioral issues or maybe a senator or anyone else wasn't, fulfilling the duty in terms of there was any X amount of reason, but there wasn't enough for removal. Has that ever happened? And if not, is that a reason why the probationary status hasn't been used?
I think from my time here, at least, the only thing that have ever been brought to review board have been attendance issues, when the ethics policy was written, then conduct and behavior in those spaces. If they were going through a university conduct process, and right, there's some aspects to that, to those pieces. I don't think I've ever seen anything minor coming to the board, because I think we've been able to handle those outside of this process. I think this process has been utilized primarily for major issues that are causing major disruption to the functions of the Senate or of the student government.
Absolutely, thank you. Senator Hatch?
Just for kind of clarification for the room, because it has come up a couple times now, we do have like tools to reprimand senators for small things. Like censure is an option to the Senate. It doesn't remove anybody's option to vote or anything. It's just the Senate saying, we disagree with what this person had to say or did. And that doesn't have to be a part of the membership review board process, and that can remain separate.
Thank you. Any other debate on this item? Okay, so we'll move directly into a vote on this amendment.
Voting is open. With 20 yes, 1 no, and 2 abstentions, the motion passes.
Okay, light snap.
We have 23 votes. Just vote now. We'll add it to the
Anyway, any other discussion on this item? Oh. Okay, I thought you had something to say. That's okay. Chairperson Poppet.
Okay. Act 4, chapter, new chapter 4. Then under clause 3, I would motion to remove subclause B and C.
Okay, is there a second for this amendment? Okay, Senator Hatch, thank you. I'll open up to debate. Is there any debate on this assignment? Chairperson Bobbitt?
So for subpoint B, we've determined through conversations about various issues throughout the session that you cannot restrict a senator's right to vote. If, in this instance, if a senator did vote, that would subject them to MRB as a result of the ethics policy. But it's my stipulation, at least, that we cannot restrict the rights granted to a senator and their ability to represent their student population. For C, the objection I have with this one is if the vice president already counts towards quorum, which means that if we lose quorum, then the meeting needs to be suspended, or like essentially it would be an improper use of the rules to grant the vice president voting rights in this situation.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Vice President Fong?
Yeah, so I'll also speak in affirmation of this item. This is just one of the few things that we discussed beforehand, but in the case that a senator does vote, choose to vote in the scenario where they're up for for their removal in Senate, that itself would be an ethics violation, and then they would just be sent to the MRV again if they weren't removed in that vote, if this goes through. But I am in support of removing those two sections.
Anyone else who would like to speak on this item? I'll also say, when reading this as well, it was clear that when we were going through this document that there were a lot of discrepancies within what how we currently operate in terms of quorum versus, I'm sure, how other senates did as well. And it was quite clear that when we were looking through, there were some discrepancies there. That's also why I'm going to vote in favor of this too, especially for C as well. The vice president already counts towards quorum, and this just doesn't make sense, truly. And it wouldn't add to quorum just because the vice president can vote in this instance, because they already count towards quorum. Anyway, all that to say, I think that you all should vote in favor of removing these items. Any discussion on this item? Beautiful. We will move directly into the voting period.
Voting is open. With 23 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Any other discussion on this item? Chairperson Bobbitt, go ahead.
This one is not a amendment yet, but I wanted to ask the opinion of the body on Act 4, Chapter 4, Point 1. It currently reads, the Membership Review Board may, with a simple majority vote, approve and enact sanctions on the respondent. And then the question that I had for the body is, I would personally like to see an act change to recommend. My reasoning behind that is, it is my assertion that MRB does not have the ability to pass a resolution. It would still require a formal move of the Senate to pass that. And then I know it grants it there, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with allowing MRB to require Senate or respondents to submit formal written apology without, I don't know, if we have to change B, A doesn't really make sense standing on its own. And that's just my 2 cents, but I'd love to hear other opinions.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the bill itself? Going once, twice. Okay, I'll speak on it. So this was a labor of love, really, because we were looking at it and going, oh boy, does this not make sense. And I think it took a little bit to really reorient this piece of legislation, just to make more sense. This year we had one MRB meeting, which was, I'll be honest, a little bit of a mess, simply because it was basically impossible to get all the members together and meet because there was conflicting schedules, and in this piece of, like, as it was written before, we had to have every single member present in order to conduct any votes or meet. This bill changes it to a 2/3 majority, which was one of the amendments we proposed in legislative affairs, which is really nice because then we can actually meet and do the business of that body, instead of if like one person called out, which is we wouldn't be able to meet at all. And so it kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed, which was really unfortunate, and one of the main reasons why like the body didn't function the way that it should. Beyond that, we just changed quite a few items to make the process make more sense. The Senate still, at the end of the day, has the decision and the responsibility of confirming what other recommendation the Membership Review Board gives. And to Senator Bobbitt's point, I believe that Act 4, Chapter 4 area, something that I think we should discuss, but to me, those items are a recommendation saying that the Membership Review Board may give these recommendations to the Senate in order to have those be the consequences of XYZ. But at the end of the day, and how it is and how the Membership Review Board is written, the Membership Review Board cannot act without the Senate's approval. So if we would like to change that language to say recommends, I'm more than in favor of that. But even though it says it may, with a simple majority of vote, approve and enact sanctions on the respondent, that is pretty harsh language. So if we want to change that, I'm for that. But ultimately, they can't do that without the Senate's approval. And that's just simply how MRB is written. So I'd love to open up back to you all to see if that's something that you would like to change. But if you're okay with that language, then that's also okay. But yeah, I recommend you all vote in favor of this. It was tough, but we did it. Okay, any other thoughts, concerns, feelings? Vice President Fawn?
I have an amendment, so Gabe can reopen that again. Get to that. Okay, so I move to amend Act 3, Chapter 3, and then point 6 on 16. And I move to strike the respondents or complaint. Compliant.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Chairperson Bobbitt. Next time. Would you like to speak on this item? You have the floor.
Yes, so we had some conversations on whether or not we can even restrict either of those, the respondent or I should say complainant, from speaking about their membership review board experience if the respondent wants to defend themselves to the Senate. I think it's more within their rights to do so. In addition, I think leaving just the members of the membership review board from being strictly prohibited from giving out information is perfectly fine leaving it that way. As the chairperson, which in most cases would be the Speaker of the Senate, will still communicate the MRB's decision regardless. But I think this is a necessary change.
Is there any debate on this item? Chairperson Bobbitt?
The specific restrictions around this languaging is what I asked for a judicial opinion on. Kind of going back and forth, it wasn't abundantly clear what authority the Senate actually had or MRB to restrict the rights of those individuals. As a senator, you are entitled to represent your constituents, and part of your constituency is yourself. We are all student fees paying students, and you are entitled to speak in public forum. You're entitled to speak to whoever you might about any issues befalling you. So I just personally felt like our authority to limit what they say and do is questionable.
Thank you. Any other debate on this item? Seeing none, we'll move directly into the voting period on this item.
Voting is now open. With 21 in favor, 0 noes, and 3 abstentions, the motion passes.
We need to get better at snapping, y'all. This is a problem. Okay. I actually have an amendment to propose on Act 4, Chapter 4.1. Just to read, the Membership Review Board may recommend with a simple majority vote to approve and enact sanctions on the respondent. That's just what we discussed earlier to make the language a little bit softer, but still allow them the opportunity to have this within the bylaws as well. Is there a second for this amendment? Okay, Chairperson Bobbitt. Are you seconding or are you speaking? Okay, great. Seconding. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Chairperson Bobbitt. I need you to lock it.
Dr. Gabriel Fonseca, we need to change how that sentence reads.
I just want you to know that I said that. So. Okay, is there any other debate on this item? Senator Lewis?
Does that also need a second?
After much confusion, Chairperson Bobbitt did second that motion. But thank you. Any other debate on this item that has been seconded? I think you swear. Okay. Seeing none, thank you. We'll move into the voting period.
Voting is now open. Waiting on two more. You might have voted before I said you could. One of you is really bad at pressing buttons. Okay, with 23 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion passes.
That sounded beautiful. That was beautiful. Okay, we move directly back into the debating period on this item. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about the resolution in entirety? Chairperson Bobbitt.
Can we move to Act 5, please? I move to strike the entirety of Act 5.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Senator Hatch. Okay, would you like to speak on this item, Chairperson Bobbitt?
By clarifying the language that said the membership review board doesn't have the authority to impose sanctions, there is no longer a need to appeal the sanctions of the membership review board to the Senate, which would now be imposing the sanctions.
I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but I'd love to get other people's thoughts on this. Advisor Fonseca?
I would agree because I think before the old language still said that technically the MRB had an authority to do sanctions without the Senate because it granted them some authority in the bylaws. That's now been changed to recommend to the Senate, which means the Senate can't appeal its own decisions. That means that decision to appeal will go to the court to deal with. So this section would become pointless because of the change you just made.
Chairperson Bobbitt?
Okay, then would it be better to then instead change the language to just like switch MRB with the Senate and then switch the Senate to the court, or? Because we'd still get rid of the procedure,
Yeah.
but leave the.
I would probably say that might be a little redundant because there's already an appeal section in the Supreme Court's process of how to appeal Senate decisions.
I have a question. So now in the event that the membership review board recommends sanctions to the Senate, and the Senate approves those and agrees, what then would be the appeals process if that was written incorrectly?
The appeals process would be to the court to process, that the court already had its own procedure to deal with appeals. So if Noah, I'm just going to pick on him, if Noah wanted to appeal the decision of the Senate, he has one more shot, and that's with the court, and he'll just follow the court's procedure to get an appeal heard, because this timeline would disrupt the court's timeline of their own appeal process.
Okay, so secondary question, then we'll get to Senator Mallard. It would just follow the same process that all the other appeals do through the courts, making this entire thing redundant. Fantastic.
Correct.
Senator Mallard.
Yeah, I speak in favor because also I believe if you just scroll up a little bit, it does say like what the recommendations are. Should the recommendation be to remove any officer? Should the recommendation be to remove speaker? So it kind of tells you a lot of the stuff that then this is kind of trying to say again. And so I do think that we should get rid of it. Yeah.
Okay, any other debate on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move directly into the voting period.
Voting is open. With 22 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion passes.
I think we're growing and learning today. That's beautiful. Any other discussion or thoughts or amendments on this bill? Going once. Twice. Why are we giggling? What's happening? Okay, last one. Fantastic. Now we're voting on the entirety of the bill itself with all the amendments that have been approved. So, voting time.
Voting's open. With 22 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion passes.
More of a build-up, that one, but that's okay. We got to it at the end. Okay, that moves us directly to consideration of new business, section 7.1.
Act on request to approve AR-67-014, Ice Out Ice.
Is the author here and would like to speak? You have the floor.
Hello again, everybody. I think this is a little kind of topical given the discussion that we had earlier led by Chairperson Owens, given the pertinent nature of this subject to current events in the world right now. If you've read the legislation, I think that it kind of explains itself why this is needed, but I think it's really important that we basically extend an olive branch to our international students. There's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot of people that are worried about what's going on in the world right now. There are students that are concerned about their safety, their immigration status, just things in general of that nature, and this is just something that we can do, kind of poking and prodding the university to stand up for these students that are our constituents. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer any of them.
Are there any questions? Vice President Fon?
Yeah, so I had a question about the first, be it further resolved, when it says that they request that any federal agency conduct business off campus. Does that include all of them, like the Postal Service or any other partnerships?
I believe that was a
Yeah.
typo. It should have said any federal law enforcement agency. I just must have missed putting in that specific one. And that is specifically because there are a lot of federal law enforcement agencies that were deputized in immigration enforcement recently that may not have training on immigration law. That is very complicated. I don't think that federal agents that don't have training on what they can and cannot do should be coming onto campus and trying to enforce laws that they do not know. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. This will go to Diversity, Empowerment, and Inclusion Committee. And we move directly, and also for that small mistake that we were talking about, just make note of that and you can make those changes in committee. But we move directly to 7.2.
Act on request to approve AR-67-015, Stop the Spread Act.
Is the author here and would like to speak? You have the floor.
Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing? Can I get some more than good? Just okay. Well, anyway, let's get down to business. So the Stop the Spread Act. Original focus was it was very broad when I originally did my first planning of the resolution, and then I started doing gathering of data through an audit of campus, and also doing a bunch of other things across campus, like asking students, staff, and also faculty on what their opinions on these kinds of this kind of legislation when it comes to public health on campus. Obviously, the scope is a lot smaller than I originally intended it. It's mainly just urging the university to do a policy change on how they actually have masks and hand sanitizer in their offices. So if someone was in, like, for example, the political science lounge, and or the dean of the School of Music, and they would be in that office. A lot of times, a lot of offices have masks, but you have to actually go and ask the actual person there if they could get one. And I just want to try to remove those barriers through this legislation, basically making it so it's actively available to all students without ever having to ask someone. It's just there, readily available. And there's a lot of actual credence for this, or reasons for this legislation to exist. There's a lot of spreading of whenever people come back to campus after visiting their homes and stuff like that, after breaks, there is high spread of airborne illnesses. I was one of the people who got infected. I got infected for COVID for the first time, which ended a kind of a long-term streak of me actually not getting sick with COVID ever. And that kind of set the motion of me wanting to get this actually done. That one experience, and I realized, because I couldn't really find masks on campus, I couldn't really find this stuff, it was hard to really maintain my own health. And as such, I also asked students if they also saw these problems, and I asked, for example, in the deans of School of Music, they said it would be helpful if masks are available. They said a lot of things, staff and students, faculty have all said these things. And I also put in provision for adding in a policy to have hand washing signs in all the bathrooms, which, by the way, through research, it does increase the likelihood of someone washing their hands, which, wash your hands, obviously, but obviously that needs to clearly be there. And they're not in all the different places across campus. They're not in all the bathrooms that, hey, here's how you wash your hands and how to do it properly. But yeah, if you have any questions, I can kind of divulge more into, different comments and stuff like that, and more information.
Are there any questions? I'll go to Vice President Vaughn and then Chairperson Bobbitt.
Yeah, so I know throughout the resolution, you mentioned a lot about Wichita State University's policy about masks and providing hand sanitizer and hand washing signs. Is there a particular policy that you wish for them to, or lack of policy in an area that you saw that there was a lack of a policy in general? Or?
So offices themselves kind of do different things. And what I saw the best hall for actually having masks and hand sanitizers being readily available is the health professions. I think it's Alberg, because of course they're going to have masks readily available to students. They're going to have hand sanitizer readily available to students. But many other halls across campus and their offices would have masks, but they're in a cabinet somewhere, and you'd have to ask for one. You'd have to have that, and that acts as a barrier to actually receiving a mask, because if someone doesn't see a mask available, it's not likely going to be used and not likely to be known it's going to have it, because they actually have a lot of masks that a lot of offices do buy masks. That's part of their budget. I was told about that. But they also have masks left over from COVID. So they have the resources available. It's just people are not utilizing them. And by making them readily available and making them seen, it's going to increase the amount of use that is going to be available. More people are going to use the thing if they know that's available.
Chairperson Bobbitt.
Okay, within several of your be it further resolved, there is a statement that of offices that students frequent. Could you quantify what you consider like offices that students frequent?
It would be like something like the dean's office or like a office for your major. Like I frequent the political science lounge. That lounge has many different people coming in and out of it. I also look at the sociology lounge, looking at different departments across campus. The dean, like the School of Music, had a bunch of people in their actual office just doing meetings. People are going to different, like it's where students are actually going to an administrative place. So like it would also include stuff like different offices within the RSC as well. So like having those resources available is important, and just removing that barrier.
We'll go to Senator Pang and then Stinnett and then Murphy.
Going back to Vice President Spawn's question, I don't believe you had answered that correctly. Can you recite what policy exactly of?
There's not really a unified policy. It's kind of just an office by office basis, and we're trying to get the university to unify that policy where it's readily available across campus. Like I'm not sure how I can really rephrase it into a way it's understandable.
That's okay. We'll go to, okay. All right. Senator Pang, go.
Just a follow-up. So you want to create a policy. You want to urge the university to create a policy.
So the offices themselves have their own policy when it comes to how they distribute masks and hand sanitizers. Some of them just have them out in the on the desks or like somewhere in the available, but some of them don't. It's just different for each different like office on campus. It's weird. It sounds weird that I'm like phrasing it like this, but they essentially have masks available, but some of them don't have them readily available. Some of them do have them readily available. It's just kind of just like, it's like up to the office themselves, and I'm trying to get it so the university itself, like all the offices on campus, have a unified policy when it comes to how they store and provide these resources to students.
Thank you. Senator Stinnett.
So whenever you're speaking about how like there's different places that students frequent, like there's going to be specific places to all students. So maybe instead of like specific areas that you consider to be like areas of student frequent, would you be willing to like put out a survey to where students actually believe that things should be implemented, because those areas are going to be different for all of our constituents?
Well, I kind of just averaged it out. I asked students where do they frequent often. I asked them about, like when I was auditing campus, I asked them would they want this service being available, and I got kind of like a lot of like, yeah, like they were agreeing with it. The survey itself, like if I put out a survey itself, I just think that, like, yeah, I would be interested in putting out a survey. I planned out a survey, but then I did that audit and I thought, well, I think I got enough data through just asking students, hey, about this. I went and talked to students.
Chairperson Grajeda.
Are you aware that in the Be It Further Resolved, line 27 and 33 are the same thing with just a few words different?
I believe I edited that out. Could that be edited in the Student Services Committee? Yeah, like they can edit that as they see, because I've already talked with Adriana about it. She said that she was interested in it, and she gave me a lot of feedback about it before I submitted it. And I thought I got to a point into it that I trust all her feedback, and I kind of just went from there. So obviously it will go to the Student Service Committee, and I have full faith in their ability to modify this resolution so that it's more correct, I guess, if the way that it would be passed on the floor.
Yeah, and that's something that can be fixed in student services as well as by the author at any time before it hits the student services floor. And we can talk about that later as well.
Yep.
Senator Enzi.
So you mentioned that you had collected data while you were going around university.
Yeah.
Did you record that, and do you have that data
Yeah, I have
for us to view?
notes. I have notes. I didn't really ask if I could say their names, so I can just like start like reading, like finding different things. But just some of my notes, I can find. Okay, I'm trying to find one of the students that I talked to, or. Just finding a lot of faculty. Hold up. So one of the students I did talk to were a graduate student. It was mainly about the hand washing things being available, and also like masks being readily available for students who cannot miss class. So it just has like they said adding hand sanitizers in hallways would help, hand washing signs by bathrooms and sinks, more sick days for students, more encouragement for students to stay home, and make masks readily available for students who cannot miss class. So this kind of covered that. I couldn't think of a way of doing all these things without putting a funding bill. And I asked repeatedly that, hey, there's clearly a lot of want for a lot more access, a lot more public health tools for people to manage their own health. And clearly it needs to be in a funding bill, which is separate from a policy change, because a policy change has to just urge the university to do something. We cannot direct them to be able to actually say, hey, you change this policy now. We don't have the power to do that. But we can fund things, which I actually planned out a funding bill after this to start funding a lot of these projects when it comes to increasing access when it comes to public health on campus. These are just basic things that I think the funding would probably not cost all that much, but that's a future thing.
Okay, I'm going to allow for 2 more questions. I'll do Senator Murphy.
So, that's loud. So oftentimes you've said campus, it mostly says campus in the resolution. So are you also going to be including off-campus locations like WCU South? Because majority of the classes that myself and a lot of other School of Digital Arts students attend are at WCU South at Shocker Studios. And so would you be including that? It's an off-campus, it's not on main campus.
It's not on main campus, but I'm assuming SGA has authority over that area. I'm assuming, yeah. So I would assume that it would, if the masks are currently available, they can now they put them out into a more public area just so that removes that kind of barrier. Really, right now, it's policy shift. Obviously, there was only one office I found that didn't actually have masks, and that was one in I think covered one of the sports majors. So they're the one office out of all the offices on the main campus I visited. Now, if there's other offices across all of the different parts of WSU that also don't have masks, that funding bill would actually help cover that so that SGA could, go ahead. But I want to first focus on policy and then work on funding. That's kind of how I've had to break up the bills, because can't do the both in the same one, so.
Okay, any other questions? Vice President Vaughn.
Yeah, so my question is, can you give us a rough range of how many students or faculty you may that you reached out to? In addition to that, do you talk to the director of health and wellness at the university level?
Yes, I actually did meet with the director of student health or the Student Wellness Center. I would say I met with about, for just students, it was about a handful. For faculty and staff, they were the ones that were all the main ones that I was able to talk to, since they were more willing to talk to me. I hate to say it, but some people just were trying to get to classes or were not willing to talk. I can't really do much about that, and I could go and talk. I could go around the entire campus and probably later, like tomorrow, and I could try to go around campus and see if I can get as many people as possible. Not everybody is going to be willing. I'm interested in doing that, but from what the data I got, I felt like I had enough. There's clearly, like, I believe this is just a policy shift. So it's not like, this is not like if a student like didn't want this, I don't think it would be a problem. Like, this is more like just directed at like the people who are running the offices across campus. Like, I don't really think it's really as, like, it's not like I'm saying, hey, you're getting charged more now for student fees. I'm not changing student fees. I'm focusing on just helping make policy more unified across campus. And I think that's, in general, like a very good thing. But I did meet with the director of student health. They gave me a lot of different things. But in our meeting, we talked about how orientation has changed in the last few years towards engagement with students, between students, bringing back the Student Wellness Center for talking to each student on orientation. People don't care about airborne illnesses spreading. There's efficiency problems in the getting of vaccines in bodies, partnerships with Dillon's and Walgreens, possible more partnerships for getting vaccines themselves, because trying to get vaccines for students is difficult, and a lot of times it's like a cost situation. And these vaccines would help with making so that students are able to get that, they'll protect themselves. The health education, health promotion focus for this year has been pushing it in heavily targeted campaigns. So they're wanting to do heavily targeted campaigns with informational videos, other content, and previous months, they said flu vaccine, COVID vaccine labs in residence halls. We thought of Hope Services to do harm reduction provided. So like for trying to reduce the amount of harm that airborne illnesses can bring to fellow students. Positive reinforcement harm reduction, that's seen as like the I think that was like, if I remember correctly, it was about trying to get so that people don't see it as, because people don't really care if other people get sick really enough, but like trying to like make a change in how we actually kind of talk about people getting sick and how we actually work to protecting the community and trying to bring that education forward. Also mass messages through My Shocker Health and a text message line being set up. So like if you were, because where do people mainly look at on campus? They're looking at their phones. If a text message was available and they could just send out a mass alert saying, hey, this like flu is spreading across campus. We're having massive outbreaks. Consider wearing a mask and like using hand sanitizer and making sure to wash your hands after you use the bathroom. These are things that we talked about. It was a very wide swath meeting, but obviously, there's a lot of ideas that we came up with, like flu and COVID shot drive on campus, air purifiers on campus to like reduce the amount of viral spreading, more hand washing signs, hand sanitizer stands being outside classrooms, lecture halls and labs, adding to a website hand washing diagrams for printing, bigger promotion of student wealth. There is so much to actually public health on campus, and I just wanted to focus on this one bit. I hate to go on this tangent, but it's a very extensive problem, and public health is surprisingly a lot. But sorry we're going over in a tangent.
That's okay. Thank you very much. I'll end the questioning period there. This is the first read on this item. It'll be moved to Student Services for consideration before it's back to the floor for its second read. And now we move directly to Section 8, adjournment. I'm adjourning this meeting at 8:53 p.m.